There are stories that lie buried in the official record, tales of human suffering and resilience so profound they are often smoothed into fables. Historians have tried to hide this story, not out of malice, but perhaps out of shame for what it reveals about the world we came from. It is the story of a soul trapped in a prison of flesh, a gentle heart hidden behind a face that people paid to see and then prayed to forget. Imagine London in the late 19th century. A thick, yellow fog, heavy with the smell of coal and damp earth, clings to the gaslit streets. The air is a cocktail of horse manure, cheap gin, and the ever-present smoke pouring from a million chimneys. In this world of breathtaking progress and brutal poverty, a simple cough could kill you. A misstep on a muddy street could lead to an infection that would take your leg. And to be born different was not a challenge, it was a curse. In this world, you would not survive. And while you ray here, let me know in the comments where you ray watching from and what time it is right now. I love seeing this community light up across the map. Now, let the fog settle, and listen, it begins not in the shadows, but in the light. In the clean, working-class home of Mary Jane and Joseph Merrick in the industrial town of Leicester. The year is 1862, and their firstborn son, also named Joseph, is a beautiful, healthy baby. For a brief, precious time, there is nothing but the ordinary joy of a new life. There is no hint of the nightmare to come. The change is subtle at first, a thing a mother's worried eyes might see long before anyone else. A small, hard lump appears on the left side of his lip. The skin over his forehead seems to loosen, to sag. The doctors have no answers. They offer useless ointments and confused reassurances, but Mary Jane knows. A deep, primal fear takes root in her heart as she watches her son begin to transform before her eyes. The growths are slow, then aggressive. His skin begins to thicken, taking on the rough, gray texture of bark. His bones deform, the right side of his body swelling to grotesque proportions until his arm is a useless, club-like appendage and his leg is so heavy he can barely walk. Fleshy, cauliflower-like masses sprout from his back and chest. His head swells, the bones of his face shifting and expanding until his features are almost completely consumed. Joseph himself, a quiet and sensitive boy, grows up believing a story his mother tells him, perhaps to make sense of the senseless cruelty of his fate. She tells him that while she was pregnant, she was knocked down and terrified by a circus elephant at a local fair. In the 19th century, the belief in maternal impression, the idea that a mother's shock could physically imprint upon her unborn child, was a widely accepted medical theory. He clings to this explanation for the rest of his life. It is the only logic in a world that has become a waking horror. Then, when Joseph is just 11, the only source of warmth in his cold world is extinguished. His mother, Mary Jane, dies. Her death is more than a tragedy. For Joseph, it is the end of his world. His father soon remarries, bringing a new woman into the home, a woman with children of her own. To his stepmother, Joseph is not a son. He is a monster, a shameful burden that eats food he does not earn. He is given the smallest portions, often just scraps, with the constant refrain that his appetite is more than his hideous appearance is worth. The emotional torment is a constant, gnawing pain far worse than the ache in his bones. At 13, he is cast out. He tries to find work, to be useful. For a time, he rolls cigars, but the deformity of his right hand worsens until he can no longer perform the delicate task. He tries to be a peddler, selling goods from his father's shop door to door. To hide his face, he dons a dark cloak and a heavy, burlap hood with a slit cut for his one visible eye. But behind every door, he finds not customers, but terror. Women faint, children scream. Doors are slammed in his face, curses and stones following him down the street. He is a ghost haunting the edges of a world that does not want him. Defeated, he returns home, only to suffer a final, brutal beating from his father. He flees, this time for good. With nowhere else to go, he enters the Leicester Union workhouse. Here, any last trace of his identity is stripped away. He is just another pauper, one of hundreds of lost souls shuffling through a life of regimented misery. For years, he endures the crushing anonymity, the gray routine of institutional life. But in the silence of the long nights, a desperate idea begins to form. He has one asset in this world, his own monstrosity. The very thing that has cost him everything is the only thing he has to sell. Scholars today still debate the precise cause of his condition. For over a century, he was posthumously diagnosed with neurofibromatosis. Yet, recent analysis of his skeleton suggests a much rarer genetic disorder, Protus syndrome, a condition so complex it continues to baffle modern science. But Joseph knows nothing of this. He knows only his own reality. In a final act of heartbreaking agency, he contacts a local showman named Samtor. He proposes a business arrangement. He will leave the slow, soulless death of the workhouse and put himself on display. He chooses the gasps and stares of the crowd over the silent indifference of the state. Tor agrees. He secures a shop directly across the street from the local hospital, a place where morbid curiosity is always high. He prints handbills, and on a cold, gray Leicester day, a curtain is pulled back. A small, huddled figure, wrapped in a blanket, sits on a stool. He is introduced to the world not as Joseph, but as a new and terrible creation, the Elephant Man. Half a man and half an elephant, the first chapter of his life is over. A new, far crueler one has just begun. The shop on Whitechapel Road is dark and damp, smelling of stale beer and unwashed bodies. This is Joseph's new home, his new stage. He has been brought to London by an ambitious showman named Tom Norman, a man who understands the city's appetite for the strange and the grotesque. Norman is not a cruel man, not in the way Joseph's stepmother was. He is a businessman, and Joseph is his prime investment. In his memoirs, Norman would later argue that he had given Joseph a better life than any factory or workhouse could offer, a claim that history still struggles to judge. Every day, the ritual is the same. Joseph sits behind a curtain as Norman, a master of spectacle, warms up the crowd outside with tales of the creature within. Then, for a penny, they are allowed to enter. They push into the small space, their faces a mixture of morbid curiosity and nervous excitement. They are clerks and dockworkers, housewives and soldiers. Norman delivers his dramatic pitch, his voice booming in the cramped room, before pulling back the curtain with a flourish. Silence falls. It is always the silence that hits first. A thick, shocked stillness, followed by gasps, nervous laughter, and sometimes, the sharp cry of a frightened woman. Joseph sits on his stool, draped in a blanket, his head bowed. He does not look at them. He feels their stares like physical blows. He has learned to retreat deep inside himself, to a quiet place where their revulsion cannot reach him. But sometimes, through his one visible eye, he sees a different expression. Not disgust, but a deep, sorrowful pity. In a way, this is worse. Their pity is a mirror, reflecting his own hopeless state, and it stings more than any insult. One day, a man of a different sort enters the shop. He is well dressed, his face clean-shaven, his eyes sharp and intelligent. This is Frederick Treves, an ambitious and brilliant young surgeon from the London hospital, an imposing brick fortress of medicine just across the road. Treves' interest is not that of the gawking crowd, it is the cold, detached curiosity of a scientist. He sees not a man, but a unique pathology, a biological puzzle to be solved. Treves pays Norman for a private viewing. Away from the crowd, in the quiet of the empty shop, he asks Joseph to stand. He observes the immense, misshapen head, the twisted limbs, the cascading folds of skin. He is methodical, clinical. He measures the circumference of Joseph's head equal to a man's waist. He notes the uselessness of the right arm, the strange growths on his back. Joseph endures the examination with a practiced stillness, accustomed to being treated as an object. Before leaving, Treves hands him a small, stiff card with his name and address printed on it. It is a simple gesture, an afterthought, but that small piece of cardboard will become a lifeline. The world outside the grimy shop is changing. A wave of public morality is sweeping through Victorian London, and the exhibition of human deformities is increasingly seen as an affront to decency. The police, under pressure from civic groups, shut down Tom Norman's show. Joseph is now an illegal attraction, a piece of contraband. With London close to him, Norman sends Joseph to Europe with a new manager, an Austrian man with a sharp smile and cold eyes. This man is not a showman, he is a predator. The tour is a disaster. The crowds are smaller, the lodgings filthier. His new manager treats him not as an investment, but as a beast, often beating him. Then, in Brussels, the final betrayal comes. The man steals Joseph's entire life savings, £50, a small fortune he had painstakingly saved, and abandons him in the cold, unfamiliar city. He is utterly alone. He cannot speak the language. He has no money, no identity beyond the monster he appears to be. The terror is absolute, a suffocating panic that threatens to overwhelm him. The exact details of how he survives are lost, a testament to a strength of will that is impossible to comprehend. He somehow finds his way to the coast, where a sympathetic ship-ass captain allows him passage back to England. He endures a harrowing crossing and a long train journey, huddled in the corner of a carriage, his hood pulled tight, praying for invisibility. He arrives at London's Liverpool Street Station. The noise, the smoke, the sheer crush of humanity is overwhelming. As he shuffles through the crowd, his strange, lurching gait and hulking, cloaked figure draw attention. A few people stop and stare. Then a child points. A woman screams. Suddenly, a crowd is forming around him, a vortex of fear and morbid fascination. They press in, shouting, pointing, their faces twisted into masks of disgust. The mob closes in, and he is trapped. He stumbles, falling against a wall, collapsing from exhaustion and sheer terror. He tries to speak, but only incomprehensible sounds come out. The police push through the crowd. He is about to be arrested, to be dragged away and locked in a cell or an asylum, lost to the world forever. Then, he remembers. With his one good hand, he fumbles in his coat pocket, his fingers close around the small, stiff card. It is his only hope, a desperate gamble on a half-forgotten memory. As a policeman grabs his arm, Joseph shoves the card into his hand. The officer looks down at it, his expression changing from aggression to confusion. In neat, black ink, the card reads, "Drive, Frederick Treves, the London Hospital." A call is placed. Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, has come home, but he does not yet know if it is to a prison or a sanctuary. The telephone rings and Drive, Frederick Treves' office. It is the police at Liverpool Street Station. They have a man, a monstrosity, who is causing a riot. He is incoherent, and he is carrying the doctor's card. Treves' first reaction is irritation. He remembers the creature from the penny show, his scientific curiosity now replaced by the annoyance of a professional man dragged into a public spectacle. Still, a sense of duty, or perhaps a flicker of that same curiosity, compels him to act. He tells the police to bring the man to the hospital. Joseph Merrick arrives under the cover of night, smuggled through a side entrance away from the prying eyes of patients and the press. He is taken to the hospital's top floor, to a set of small, isolated rooms in the attic, meant for contagious diseases. The door is bolted, the window is barred. He is no longer an exhibit, but he is not yet a patient. He is a problem to be managed. To the nurses, he is an object of terror. They leave his meals outside the door and flee, some quitting their posts rather than tend to him. For the first few days, Joseph sits alone in the silence, the brief flare of hope that ignited at the station guttering out, leaving him in a familiar darkness. He is caged once more. Treves begins his examinations, but his frustration grows. The man is mute, or so it seems. He makes guttural sounds, but no words emerge. Treves, like everyone else, assumes the mind is as deformed as the body, that he is dealing with a congenital imbecile. The case seems hopeless. But Treves is a man of science, and he is persistent. He spends hours with Joseph, speaking to him, showing him objects, searching for any flicker of comprehension. And then, the breakthrough, he discovers that Joseph is not mute at all. His speech is muffled and nearly impossible to understand because of the malformation of his jaw, but he is trying to talk. More astonishingly, Treves realizes that Joseph can read. It is a moment that changes everything. The monster, the specimen, can read. Treves brings him books, romances, histories, poetry. Joseph devours them, his one good hand turning the pages with a delicate precision. Slowly, painstakingly, they learn to communicate, first with gestures, then with Joseph pointing to words, and finally, through writing. And as he begins to share his thoughts, the true Joseph Merrick emerges from behind the horrifying mask. He is not an imbecile. He is a man of profound sensitivity and sharp intelligence. He possesses a gentle, almost childlike soul, full of romantic notions and a deep longing for beauty. Treves is stunned, his scientific detachment shattered by the revelation of the eloquent mind trapped within the prison of flesh. Joseph finds a new purpose in his attic rooms. With his left hand, he begins to construct intricate, beautiful models out of cardboard. He builds a stunning replica of the Mainz Cathedral, a building he has only ever seen in a picture. Its delicate spires and buttresses a testament to his patience, his artistry, and the sophisticated mind that has been hidden for so long. But a new crisis looms. The London hospital is an institution for the sick, for those who can be treated and released. Joseph is not ill, his condition is incurable. The hospital committee, led by its chairman Francis Cargum, rules that he cannot stay. He is taking up a bed that could be used for an acute, curable case. He must be sent away. The news is a death sentence to Joseph. The thought of returning to the workhouse, to the life of shame and misery, is more than he can bear. Treves, now fiercely protective of the man he has come to know, faces a moral crisis. He argues, pleads, but the committee's decision is final. In a last, desperate attempt, Treves convinces Cargum to meet Joseph. The chairman is deeply moved by the encounter. Realizing the profound injustice of casting this man out, Gum conceives of a brilliant, unprecedented plan. He writes a letter to the editor of the influential newspaper, The Times. In elegant, compassionate prose, he tells the story of Joseph Merrick, his tragic life, his brutalization in the showgrounds, and the discovery of his gentle, affectionate, and intelligent nature. He appeals directly to the public's conscience, asking for donations to establish a fund that would allow Joseph to live out his days at the hospital. The response is immediate and overwhelming. Letters and money pour in from across the British Empire. The story of the Elephant Men captures the Victorian imagination, a perfect fable of hidden nobility and Christian charity. The fund is a resounding success, easily securing enough money to provide for Joseph for the rest of his life. He is granted permanent sanctuary. The bolt on his door is removed. The nurses, following Treves' lead, no longer see a monster. They see Joseph. One day, a young nurse, entering his room, smiles at him. It is a simple, genuine smile, free of fear or pity. Joseph covers his face with his hand and weeps uncontrollably. It is the first time since his mother's death that a woman has looked at him with simple kindness. Scholars still debate the true nature of the relationship that formed between the two men. Treves, in the memoirs he wrote years later, presents himself as a heroic savior and a dear friend. But those same memoirs contain factual errors and embellishments, leading some to question if his motives were ever entirely pure. Was Joseph a friend, or was he Treves' most celebrated case, a project that brought him fame and cemented his legacy? The truth of their bond remains a complex and perhaps a noble mystery. Now safe, Joseph begins to open up even more. One evening, he confesses to Treves his deepest, most heartbreaking desire. More than anything, he wishes he could experience one simple, ordinary thing, to lie down and sleep in a bed like other people. The immense weight of his head makes this impossible. He must sleep sitting up, his head resting on his raised knees. To lie down flat would be to suffocate or dislocate his neck. This impossible dream of normal rest, of a simple human posture, reveals the true depth of his tragedy. He is now safe and cared for, looking out his window at a world that has finally shown him a measure of kindness. He has been unmasked, his humanity revealed, but though the cage is now gilded, it is a cage nonetheless. He has an existence, but he has yet to find a life. Life in the attic rooms of the London hospital settles into a quiet rhythm. Joseph is safe, clean, and well-fed for the first time in his life. He spends his days reading, constructing his delicate cardboard churches, and watching the endless parade of life on Whitechapel Road from his window. He is a man looking at a world through glass. He is cared for, but he is profoundly alone. Treves, watching his quiet, lonely routine, understands that a soul cannot survive on safety alone. It needs contact, it needs connection. Treves decides to conduct an experiment. He knows that Joseph's greatest trauma has been his rejection by women. He persuades a young, kind widow of his acquaintance to visit. The preparation is meticulous. The woman is instructed not to show any sign of shock or fear. She enters the room, and Joseph, as he always does when meeting a stranger, shrinks into the darkest corner, his head bowed. But this time is different. The woman does not recoil. She walks towards him, smiling, and extends her hand. Hesitantly, he places his one good hand in hers. She says good morning and sits down to talk. For Joseph, the simple, ordinary act is a cataclysm. A woman is smiling at him, a woman is touching him willingly. The spell that has defined his entire existence, the spell of his own monstrosity, is broken. This visit opens the floodgates. The story of the gentle, intelligent elephant man becomes a sensation in the drawing rooms of London as high society. The city as elite, always searching for a new and fashionable charity, are captivated. It becomes a mark of social distinction to visit Joseph Merrick. Actresses, duchesses, and politicians make the pilgrimage to his attic sanctuary. They bring him gifts, books, silver, framed photographs of themselves. His most devoted patron is the celebrated actress Madge Candle. Though they likely never meet in person, she becomes his fairy godmother, sending him presents and arranging for her influential friends to call on him. He even receives a visit from Queen Victoria's own daughter-in-law, Alexandra, the Princess of Wales, who sends him a signed photograph and a Christmas card every year thereafter. Through these connections, he is granted experiences he had only read about in his romance novels. Madge Candle arranges for him to attend the theater. The logistics are worthy of a royal visit. A private carriage, its windows drawn, is brought to a secret side entrance of the hospital. Joseph, wearing a dark, sweeping cape and a large, veiled hat, is smuggled into the Theatre Royal at Drury Lane. He is shown to a private box, hidden from the audience by a velvet curtain, and there, in the darkness, he watches a Christmas pantomime, a glittering fairy tale of heroes, damsels, and wondrous magic. He is utterly captivated. The world on the stage, a world of beauty and adventure, is, for a few hours, completely real to him. But the joy is bittersweet. It is a painful reminder of the life he can see, but never touch. He is, and always will be, an observer, hidden behind a curtain. He is even granted a trip to the countryside. A kindly aristocrat offers him the use of a small cottage on a secluded country estate. For 6 glorious weeks, Joseph lives in a state of bliss. He wanders for hours through quiet woods, listening to the birds, his face uncovered, free from the pointing fingers and horrified stares of the city. He befriends a local gamekeeper, and in this simple, honest connection, he likely finds the most genuine friendship of his life. But the idyll must end. The return to his small rooms, to the smoke and noise of London, is a crushing blow. As the years pass, the novelty of the Elephant Man begins to fade for London's elite. The visits become less frequent. The gifts stop arriving. Joseph is left once more to his books and his models, but the silence of his rooms is now heavier. haunted by memories of a world he was allowed to glimpse but never join. His health deteriorates. The enormous weight of his head, ever growing, becomes a constant source of pain. He is tired. On the night of April 10th, 1890, Treves pays his usual visit. Joseph seems cheerful, showing the doctor a picture of the church he plans to model next. They speak of the coming summer, of another possible trip to the country. Nothing seems out of the ordinary. Treves bids him good night and leaves. The next morning, a nurse enters the room and finds Joseph lying in his bed. He is still. He is not in his usual seated position, but is lying down, flat on his back. In the night, the immense weight of his head had crushed his windpipe and dislocated his neck. He had died instantly. He had finally achieved his one, simple, lifelong dream, to lie down to sleep like a normal man. The question of that final act will forever remain a mystery. Was it a tragic accident, a simple slip from the pillows that propped him up? Or, in the deep weariness of his soul, did he make a conscious choice? Did this man, who had tasted just enough of life to understand all that he could never have, decide in the quiet of his room to seek a final peace, to lay his burden down, once and for all? We will never know. His life, which began as a biological mystery, ended as a mystery of the heart. His skeleton remains at the London hospital to this day, a silent artifact of medical science. But the legacy of Joseph Merrick is not one of bones and disease. It is the story of a man who was handed the cruelest of fates and yet cultivated a spirit of profound gentleness and grace. He was a mirror held up to the face of Victorian England, reflecting back both its shocking cruelty and its surprising capacity for compassion. His life forces us to question the very nature of what is monstrous and what is human, and to ask ourselves where true beauty resides, in the vessel of the body, or in the quiet, unbreakable dignity of the soul. The story of the Elephant Man is not about how a man came to look like a monster, but about how, against all odds, a monster learned to be a man, only to discover that the world of man was a place he could never truly call home.